Welcome back, guys. Today I have a very special guest with me, Randy from Chump Change Fantasy Football Podcast, and we are ranking some Christmas movies. So, without any further ado, let's get into some honorable mentions.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. As I was working through this list, I had a very hard time narrowing. I do a lot of rankings over on my podcast, but this was pretty difficult. So, with that in mind, I'll kind of give the crash course. We ended up on this ranking our 12 top Christmas movies for kind of a 12 days of Christmas vibe. But for me, I also then thought there's also the 25 days of Christmas. So I had included 13 in my honorable mentions that I will just breeze through. So at the bottom here, I have White Christmas. I think it's a masterpiece. It's just not one I have a ton of nostalgia for. A Christmas Story, really solid movie, just not my top one. Die Hard, which is a Christmas movie, firmly. The Polar Express, I think it's great. There's just a lot of good movies. Something has to be lower. Rocky 4. I had a hard time not putting this higher because my own personal nostalgia. I just do think it's lower in the Christmas department. All of the other reindeer, so good, highly underrated. You need more penguins stealing mail trucks and stuff in your life. Then, of course, we have Santa Claus, the movie, which is just a great, super traditional one. I know that's probably going to be in your top 12 if I was guessing. Yeah. But I just had some other ones that for me, I based this list so much more off of my own personal nostalgia and memories more than just what objectively is. This is not objective. This is my personal rankings. I hopped into Frosty and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, couple of classics with the Rankin Bass there.
So
Gotta
good.
love it.
So
Absolutely.
Good.
The top four were all at one point in my top actual 12. Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. You could argue the Twice Upon a Christmas too. Both excellent. Annabelle's Wish, highly underrated. Cows with Aspirations to Become Reindeer. Just, we need more of that as well. And then the top two were very close. The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause. Great film. Awesome movie. I just kind of had to leave one out. There's so many other, spoilers for later, great movies in that series that it was just hard to include all three. And of course, Mickey's Christmas Carol. I just think it's probably my favorite rendition of the typical Christmas Carol story. So I wanted to include that one as my top honorable mention. And you, what do you think for some honorable mentions here? I know I went above and beyond, but
I guess I went with a much shorter list. I wrote all these out on a different sheet that I was just kind of going through, crossing off which would make the cut and what wouldn't. And I only ended up going with 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
My first one, I did Christmas with the Cranks.
Okay.
Which I have always loved, but a lot of people did not like for a long time. But over the years, it's becoming a little bit more beloved.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other one, I put 4 Christmases with Vince Vaughn and I believe Reese Witherspoon.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I always love that big Vince Vaughn guy. There is another one of his movies, a little bit of spoiler alert for another one of his Christmas movies that makes it here. So that's kind of the top 2 I went with, I guess. I mean, I did think about some of the ones like the Rankin Bass ones, I was so good, those claymation like that, and I don't know. It was I didn't really really include I don't think any animated. Well, I guess there is maybe 1 or 2 animated ones on this list, but for the most part, they're pretty much live action, I guess. But it's so hard with all these Christmas movies and loving them for so long is that you can make so many different lists, as we talked before, to where it's you could do animated Christmas specials or best of Rankin Bass and
spoilers for future years.
Yeah, exactly. So it's we can make a different 12 each year. Initially,
absolutely.
I thought about doing 25, but I was that would be a lot because that would be 50 movies between us. So I was that would make for a longer video
for sure.
But
well, let me ask you too. I was curious, what was your criteria for your list? You don't have to get into everything, but kind of what did you really base yours off of? Is it more your own personal feelings? Is it objectively what people think is most popular? Kind of how'd you compile your list?
That's a really good question. Basically what I kind of did, I used pretty much the same way of thinking as you did, kind of just basically what was the best to me and my favorites, because another thing we mentioned before is this might be a little spoiler alert again, but there are so many that are favorites of other people's, like the Die Hards, or there's White Christmas, or
Miracle on
34th Street, which I do like, Miracle on 34th Street. That was one I almost thought about for an honorable mention.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, It's a Wonderful Life. That's one that ranks up there for a lot of people, and in my personal opinion, I did not care for it very much. But maybe that will change with a rewatch.
Sure.
But that kind of covers it for my honorable mentions. So I'll flip it over to you with your 12th to start a ranking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that. Okay, that was helpful too. So for me, in the number 12 spot, I have the movie Prancer, the original, which great film. Yeah, it was interesting as I thought through this one. I haven't actually watched Prancer in several years now.
Same.
Great film.
Got it up
right
there.
Yep, right there. Top shelf, clearly. But yeah, I just think it's a good family movie that works through some things. There's definitely a little bit more going on. The fun kind of figuring out is this just a little girl's thing? Is this actually Prancer throughout the movie, and where they're leading you is very interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of good I don't know, some of those family value conversations and like dad wants to work hard all the time. And then like there's the caring about Christmas over here. And there's the missing Prancer that becomes a thing for the whole town. Like, I don't know, it just ties together and makes things like both like about family and about community and like wanting to help out and do what's best. And I don't know, I just really enjoy it. And I have a lot of nostalgia for that movie. It's one I always looked forward to coming on when I was a kid every year to watch with the family. Clearly not my absolute favorite, but like one I definitely needed in the top 12.
That was one that almost made my list. I thought
Sure.
very solid choice, I think, to start the list. That was one I almost considered
Thank
an
you.
honorable mention. I have not watched it in a long time either,
Okay.
but I do feel like it has good heart to it, and it's nice to have a different
Good way.
reindeer movie besides Rudolph. I do love Rudolph,
Here you
but
go.
just like it is very nice and it's a little bit more grounded in the real world.
Exactly.
Besides it being live action, but it's like you have the struggles and it feels real world of like he's trying to keep the
Mhm.
farm and stuff. Sam Elliott's character.
Yep.
And it feels very much more real. Part of it too, like with that movie, almost kind of it's one of those to where like for the character of Jessica to where like with some of the decisions like she makes, it's almost like not secondhand embarrassment, but just to be like, don't do that, you're gonna get in
Yeah,
trouble. Like
yeah.
you kind of feel like that the whole like
You can
know,
put
a lot
yourself
of the
in her
movie.
shoes very
Yeah, but I
easily.
think that
Yep.
makes for like effective writing that way.
Yeah. Like you
So
understood how she ended up where she ended up, and therefore like you had that empathy that you just don't always get.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, agreed for sure.
yeah.
It's a good solid choice. So thank you.
It
But
is, yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you, I'm curious here. 12.
Yeah,
12
so
for you.
my 12th, this one, like in years past, if you would have asked me, this
Mhm.
probably would have been in top 3, but my 12th is the Polar Express. So
Okay.
that did drop down for me a lot. I still enjoy the movie, and I rewatched it last week. You know, obviously with being older, it does not hit the same way as you
Yeah.
know, like a lot of
Yeah,
these
makes
movies.
sense.
But it's also the fact of like not even just being older, but it's like when you see a movie so many times. But it is
Mhm.
part of like kind of Christmas tradition for me to like watch
Yeah.
that because like the Polar Express, the main 2 things that I think about, well, actually there's a few different things, but is that like people always talk about like the uncanny valley look of the characters and stuff, but I can kind of see past that because like
Mhm.
I do acknowledge that and that is a valid point that people have, but is that for the time though, like I think 21 years ago now that
Mhm.
that came out,
That
is
sounds right.
that the motion capture, it was the first of that of its kind, you know? So that was very unique, and then Tom Hanks doing like 4 or 5 different
It's
characters.
impressive.
There is some more stuff to that of maybe why he played 4 or 5 because there's a lot of different like rabbit holes you can go down with the stories. So that I think is fascinating because I'll just like scroll TikToks like going talking about different
Mhm.
theories and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just me. But anyway, and I think that has a lot of good heart. You know, it's like maybe it does look a little bit off, but I think like just like the purpose of it and having something to believe in and having faith. And it's like
Mhm.
you can think about that in a lot of different ways. You can take that way of
Mhm.
thinking. Anyway, I just thought it's very unique. And the other 2 things too that I always think of it with is seeing that in theaters, and that was special to me because
That
seeing
was.
that when I was 4,
Yeah.
and we had the popcorn bucket for years.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and then my other thing is like that was the movie probably more than any other in school that got played for like Christmas parties and stuff.
Yeah.
So probably because it's rated G, so it's a little bit
Yeah.
more approachable.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was cool with that too is that a lot of teachers sometimes they would like set the chairs up like in a line, like it was like in a train car. So they really made it special that way. Or sometimes they do other decorations with some
That's
paper
cool.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So Polar Express number
Okay.
12.
I think it's a great choice that definitely is deservedly there. It was barely outside of mine, not because I didn't like the movie. I think my couple thoughts based on what you said are number one, I think the art style and like just how it looks, if you read the book, makes a lot more sense because it actually echoes that so much more. So I feel like if you were someone who was very much like, oh, how are they going to turn this into a movie? It made a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Like all the choices that they made there. I believe also that Tom Hanks just truly like shows his range as an actor within there. So I appreciate that, of course, too. And
Yeah.
yeah, what you were getting at too, this wrestling of like having something to believe in and what can I really believe in is definitely something that I feel like people wrestle with. So even though it's like a children's film, I feel like it hits on a deeper theme there for sure.
It does.
In a unique way. So yeah, love the choice. Love
Thank
the
you.
choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So over your number 11.
Yeah, so I would consider this one a modern masterpiece in the sense of it has not been around long enough to have developed a deep nostalgia for a lot of people, but it is just a very, very good, solid movie that was incredibly well done. And I went with The Christmas Chronicles
Ooh,
as my
that's
number
very
11.
good choice. Very good choice.
So yeah, this one I could see in future years being up higher just because it has had that lasting power. Like it's hard to beat out something like some of the staples, like any of the Grinches or, Charlie Brown or, Home Alone's, like all those different movies. They've just been around longer too. So people have built up these attachments and feelings towards them. Christmas Chronicles, it's just a great storyline. It's unique. You can get in the character's shoes. You can have that feeling of like, wow, there's a lot going on at home. They don't really have their dad around anymore. Their mom is working on Christmas Eve, and that's tough. Like, the little girl wants to see Santa Claus. Like, the older brother's dealing with all the teenager feelings and things. And like, it's a family you can like kind of get in and be like, oh, this is very real. And then, man, you've just got this awesome like Santa Claus who just hops into the picture and is kind of like changing their lives, working around and within them and through them to like make it very interesting in Kurt Russell's character. And it's just outstanding. I just think the quality's done. I think it's well thought through. I think it creates its own like almost Santaverse, if you will, like a whole like new headcanon for how you picture the North Pole and all those things and elves and like the reindeer and how Santa Claus operates, and like almost new personality for Santa that you haven't seen in a while. Like, you know, that little bit of like, yep, he's still there. And there's this deep sense of care, which you always want with Santa Claus, but also then this concept too of like that little bit of sass, that little bit of real world that like makes him understand things just that bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the movie. I truly think it's a modern day classic, and not in the sense of like the last 25 years modern, but like the last 5-6 years modern classic. Truly an awesome one. So
I think that's a solid pick, and that was one I considered for my list. If I would have maybe had a more expanded like honorable mention, I would have put that. I love Kurt Russell, first of all.
Yeah, great actor.
I think he is one of the best like more kind of modern Santas, you would say, because I would say because like there hasn't really been like a very memorable one besides him, because like J.K. Simmons in Red One was kind of okay, but he just felt like he was playing himself, to where Kurt Russell, like, he has long hair a lot of times anyway, and his just look and the look of the suit, and as you said, like the, you know, like his world of the North Pole is so unique, like the take on it. But I think that's what a good Santa movie should do, is that they are unique from each other, of like how they build the lore and what they think a Santa would be like. So I like that. I guess my only like pet peeve with that, I get a couple things, I guess, is that I have not had as much time with it either, because I've watched it like
that's
twice.
my thought.
So it's like, as I watch it more, I'm sure I will like it more. Like that, you know, it's a good, you know, heartfelt story of like what the family's going through. And that's at the root of any good Christmas movie. It's the heart of who the, you know, people are, besides whatever like magical character you have in there or whatever else is going on. So that is good. And, you know, pretty likable characters. Both those actors did a good job. What was I going to say? I really like that, you know, Santa, Kurt Russell, you know, was just having fun with it. You can really tell that. Tora was like, he didn't really need to like kind of go on, you know, misadventure with them, but he kind of chose to do that, and it brought them closer together. So I like that
purposeful,
a lot. Yeah. And as you said too, you mentioned the sass that his Santa had. I thought that was really good, because I was thinking of like, he was looking at like one of the Coca-Cola billboards. He's like, do they really think I look like that? You know, it's kind of funny that he's very self-aware, that he's kind of more of a trimmer kind of Santa like that. So
absolutely.
it felt more real instead of just, you know, kind of like the standard Santa that we get sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. There was a little bit more complexity, and and I think so much of it too is just interesting because, again, it is a newer movie, and I feel like that changes just so much of what you're able to get into and feel about it, because it's just not, you know, the fact I think that it made a top 12 list in general, I think actually says a lot. And also they made actually like a pretty noteworthy and like really solid sequel, which I think is also impressive too. Like that wasn't just a money grab. It was actually good.
Yeah. I think I did like in the sequel too, is that like of how they did the North Pole in that. Like the overall story really I did not like as much as the first one, but but the North Pole and everything looked great. I loved it.
But it didn't feel out of place. And I feel like that says a lot too about like, can you make a sequel that makes sense? Like obviously like the Santa Claus, like well known for making good sequels. Like, and this followed in that vein. So,
I agree. Solid pick.
Absolutely. But with you, number 11.
Okay, so over to my number 11, I put A Christmas Story.
Okay.
So that might be a little low for a lot of people's rankings. And I've enjoyed this movie. It was never like a top like favorite of mine, but as I've, you know, as time has went along, I think I watch it a little bit more and more. And this is another DVD that I have up there. But I've always liked the movie, and again too, it's just kind of different because it's just kind of just more goofy like family story to where they're kind of all over the place. But it's kind of one of those too to where it feels like relatable, because it's like, you know, you realize like they're struggling too, and the dad works very hard, and the mom's kind of trying to keep everything together at home, and then you also have like more elements at school and stuff. So I thought that was cool. But I just love the look and the, you know, aesthetic and like the heart that went into that, because that was made in '83, but it takes place in what the
50s, I think.
Is it 50s?
I think 50s.
Okay. Maybe I'm off on the decade a little bit.
You're okay. I'm saying I think. I'm not confident.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember anything about like the war, and if it was the 40s, I feel like that would have been a prominent piece they
of it.
brought up more so. So I want to say
yeah.
like 50s
Okay,
probably.
okay. That could be fitting because it could just be post like war era.
Yeah,
kinda
exactly.
stuff,
No,
because
sure.
it's never explicitly mentioned. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's always a fun time. I like that a lot. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that one as one of the like definitely it's definitely like a consensus classic. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that as in like I feel like it's that for a reason. It's like a story that you can grab onto. It's got some funny visuals with the pink bunny suit and the Red Ryder BB gun and the
Yeah.
shoot your eye out and like all these different things that you can kind of hold on to that make it memorable and not just here's the straight streamlined Christmas movie. It stands out a bit in some ways.
It
And I
does.
think that's what really gives it a lot of that staying power and lasting power. Along with that too, I just do think it has that concept of like, I don't know, getting inside the heads of kids who have wanted something really badly for Christmas and kind of living that out. And then like how that plays into their day-to-day life and getting into life with mom and dad and siblings,
Yeah.
friends from school. And like, you really feel like you're included in it. Not so much like I see what's going on in the storyline, but you're like, you could be living in that house with them and you kind of can feel what that's like in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah.
Even just like that, like slight cringe of like dad opening the major award, you know? It's like, you know, you can
Yeah.
put yourself there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense.
It feels very real, and I think like it's fleshed out in a way towards like you
Yes.
like as you kind of said, you feel like you could be there with them, and you have the anticipation of the build up to Christmas and like really wanting something, because I think we've all had presents that were like our number one that we really wanted. Like
This year, I clearly wanted this thing.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And then the other thing I think of too is like of having when we had the Red Rider years ago.
Yeah,
I think about
yeah.
every time it would be like the middle of summer, and I'd be like, oh, it's like in a Christmas
Red Rider.
story. Yeah.
Nope,
But
for sure.
yeah, it's over to you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, up next in the number 10 spot, I have the classic Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I just think it's a great film. I think I love the Rankin Bass type of stuff, so it's hard to keep them fully off, even though I didn't get Rudolph or Frosty in here. I had to include this one. I just think it's so good. I love the visuals. Again, like I just like that art style that they used for the movie, I think is really good.
Yeah.
I like the storyline. It shows kind of that adoption of Santa Claus. Again, that Santa backstory. Very different take on like there's not a ton of elves. There's like 6 elves.
Yeah.
And like the different like approach there and how that all like goes in. Burgermeister, Meisterburger, and like that town, like everything's gray, and then the transformation with the toys, like, yeah, it's just a really interesting feeling. The transformation of the like kind of like snobby school teacher into Mrs. Claus, like
I liked that a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool pieces as far as like finding something that you find important and being willing to work for that. Like bringing those kids joy was what he found important, and then being able to do that meant so much, you know?
Yeah.
The concept of like, and my family that I've been adopted into has this identity as toy makers. I want them to live that out, that identity. And it means so much more to be a toy maker if kids play with your toys. Like, I don't know. I just think it's simple, but it's also just really good. I love the mail truck, of course, too. Just a great way to intro that in and out. I love that. And I mean, we're not doing Easter movies, but if I was, obviously him in that Easter movie too. The Easter Bunny's coming to town. Right?
Yeah.
Top tier stuff. So
yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of what I have to say. Just a little more simplistic, but great film.
I think that's a solid pick. That was one I definitely considered for my list. Probably really all these on your list I would have considered too.
We grew up in the same house.
We did. We did. I was going to say we have the tape of this somewhere, but it's available on YouTube and on different streaming things now. But I've always loved watching Santa Claus is Coming to Town every year, because it has a good story, like you said, simple, but I also love the look of that, of how they animated it. And I think earlier I'd said with Rankin Bass, like claymation stuff, a lot of them they use puppets for, which I didn't know till years later. But it's so unique to think with some of these old cartoons like that, to where there was so much heart that went into it, to where it's like you either had like puppets that you were actually building, or little sets, or also too like when you think of things like Scooby-Doo, to where they're hand drawn, and it's like how much work. Like animators still put in a lot of work, but it's a little bit different now than it was. So I think that's a really, really solid choice. And just
well, thank you.
I've always loved that a lot, because even I'd watch that in the middle of the summer or something. So
I agree with that. That's good.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah.
Hey, what about you? We're into the top 10 for you.
Yeah. So just breaking into the top 10 here, I would put Home Alone 2.
Great film.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of people put this above the first one. The reason why it is in the 10 spot here for me is because I feel like it is a solid film, and I've always enjoyed it, and it uses the New York location well. I really like that a lot. There are other films that are set in New York, like Jason Takes Manhattan, for example. I know this is a Christmas movie ranking. That was
the first movie I thought of in New York.
But they did not like utilize it well, to where like Home Alone 2 goes all in with this.
I get where you're going.
Like essentially, it is pretty much the same story, just amped up a little bit, and there is something that people really love about that. I like the film a lot. I've always enjoyed it, but the first one to me, I probably like a little bit more because it's like
Sure.
he's a little bit more naive and he really believed his family disappeared. To where in the second one, he's like, my mom will show up, kind
It's
of
gonna happen eventually.
a little bit of
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of what I liked. I did like the angle though too with the Duncan's toy chest. That was kind of
That was fun.
interesting.
Yeah, that was really fun.
And like I guess with the pigeon lady too, to where he's like, hey,
Mhm.
everybody just needs a friend sometimes. So
Right.
so I enjoyed that aspect of it too. But yeah, solid film. It's not one I
Yeah.
guess that I watched like a ton, and it was never one when I was younger, like the first two Home Alones that I watched all the time. But
Mhm.
as I've gotten older and gotten them on DVD and stuff, I
Yep.
watched them more, and that's another one that's up on the
Awesome.
shelf. So
No, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Well, I love the choice. I mean, we'll be talking about that one again. I could tell you that much. This will come up again
Spoiler
here.
alert.
Spoilers, but
Yeah.
yes. But no, I just think it's a great movie. I think it's a good pick. I can totally get the reasoning of putting the other one ahead of it. Absolutely makes sense, but it also just deservedly is on this list its own right. It is just a really solid film. I just think it's really fun too, because like he's in New York at Christmas time. He's kind of making the most of that as a kid. And I think you just see him live that out with the like your very own cheese pizza and you have a whole hotel suite with the giant ice cream thing that's being scooped by room service. Like there's just all these fun things to where you're like, yeah, I could see as a kid being like, that's what I'm going to do. Checking out the uncle's apartment that's underway and like using that as a trap for the bad guys. The Duncan's toy chest for this concept of like a redeeming quality, because you could start to look at like him as, I don't know, just very selfish. And there's totally selfish aspects to Kevin McAllister. But then like he gives that redeeming bit if it's like, I want to do something good for these kids, and I know these guys are going to steal that. And like it works again. And I think there's also something so fun to seeing the way that the kid brain works, and then putting together these different complex traps and things that like they have to go through. And even though they've already been through one of his mazes of like just disaster, they still have to go through that again, and it still gets them in so many different ways. There's ways he's accounted for them knowing and ways that he hasn't. And yeah, it's very, very interesting. So yeah, I love the film. I think it's a great choice.
Thank you. And I think that did make it fun that he kind of levels up a little bit. He's a year older, a little bit smarter, and he knows kind of what they might expect the burglars.
Yeah.
So that was a lot
The
of
sticky
fun.
bandits.
The sticky
At that point
bandits.
in
Yeah,
time.
yeah. At that point, yeah.
Yeah.
Over back to you.
Yeah, number 9 for me. We would be going with The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Ooh,
So
another
right
good ranking
back to back. Exactly, with the other one there. And I don't know. I had a hard time ranking those two. I probably could have flip-flopped either order as far as which one's first between the two. They would have been next to each other either way. I just think it's fun. I love the music within it. I think the music is very underrated. Even like as I was doing some research, it was listed within like more musical Christmas shows, obviously with like a White Christmas or something. I was like, it's an interesting comparison. I've never compared White Christmas and A Year Without a Santa Claus, but I guess in the sense of like truly musical Christmas movies, yeah, I suppose like it starts to make some sense. I really enjoy it, obviously, because it's on the list. But I also just think it's really good, that concept of like, yep, I've been working hard, I care about this thing, but I'm just too sick to make it work this year. And you get the little reindeer, Vixen, who just can't quite hold up, and you have all this empathy, and you got these elves and Mrs. Claus, and you got the like two super interesting characters introduced out of nowhere of like Heat Miser, and
I love
the
them.
Frost guy. What's the frosty one's name?
Snow Miser.
Snow Miser.
Yeah,
Heat Miser and Snow Miser.
Yeah.
And these brothers who are just on these opposite sides of things. Like it's just a really fun back and forth. And I enjoy the tensions that are put in place. I appreciate the way that they're trying to make things work. The showing that like people notice and care if there is a Santa Claus, and like finding that pride, even as an adult, like that pride in your work and that purpose that's there, I think is even a theme that kind of shines through. So yeah, love that one.
Yeah, I think that's a very good pick. That one, like I kind of go back and forth with also too with Santa Claus is coming to town. The only thing I guess with A Year Without a Santa Claus is like sometimes I guess like with like the sadder parts of it, like when they use Blue Christmas in that movie, like I kind of would almost cry a little bit because I just feel like, don't forget about him, man. But it's like, so there was some of that. And then also too, it's like, I guess looking back at it later is like, there's a lot of these tour, like with any movie ever, it's like you have to, suspend your disbelief and stuff.
Yep.
So it's like, not everything does make sense, but it's like the plot is a little bit all over the place. Maybe that's me being a little bit.
Oh yeah, no.
But that's looking back at it now to where it's like, to where he's like, yeah, I'm hanging it up. And then it's like, oh, I guess people do care. And it's kind of so like back and forth, but it's just like, and then it's just like, also too, it's like the fact of like, towards like, Santa's not supposed to be seen, but then he's like walking around with like the top hat and stuff, Mr. Klaus.
Right.
And then like he has a parade through the freaking street, it's just like, does he just, throw fairy dust at everybody after? Be like, you never saw this, maybe it's like Tooth Fairy or something.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like
It's
amnesia
Tooth Fairy,
dust,
Yeah.
So yeah, but good movie though. I've always liked that a lot.
Yeah,
So.
I thought it was very deserving.
So, making my number 9 on the list, I put the Santa Claus, the
Yep.
first one
I was
from
waiting for this one.
94.
Yep.
So this probably, if you would have asked me maybe like 10 years ago, even maybe 5 years ago, this would have been like probably in my top 5. Not a bad film. It just has dropped down for me a little bit. It's also too like I've
Mhm.
watched it so many times, and it is still very quotable because like the lines like that a pretty picture Santa rolling down the block in a Panzer. Yeah. I love that stuff though, and I'm glad that I burned it into your brain. So it's like this is probably wild, like, you know, different tests and things to where it's like I'd forget that I'd be like thinking of Santa Claus lines.
Yep.
I do really like, you know, I did enjoy like when I rewatched this last month was some of the more kind of like, you know, one-liners from Tim Allen. I do find funnier now with being an adult and stuff. Like when I was a kid, there was so much of that stuff, not with just this movie, but with so many that like went over my head of not even just like
Mhm.
innuendos, but like different kind of funny lines like that to where it was like, get back to the North Pole stuff, man. You know, but I've always liked the Santa Claus. I like all three. A lot of people hate on the third one, but the third one does not make my list. But I always have enjoyed that. And that one was the only Santa Claus movie that I saw in theaters.
Oh,
So I do have nostalgia for that.
Yeah.
You know, Santa Claus is solid and it set up the whole world and the lore. And I thought it was a very, you know, unique take because before that, nobody had like done a movie like that. Really, I guess, sense to where like, you know, just the guy was, you know, kind of maybe not the best dad, wasn't really there all that much. And then like he becomes Santa. And also, too, you know, if you think of like how we were talking about like the, you know, heart of like a lot of these movies
Yeah.
is they were divorced families. So it's like you have Charlie like dealing with, you know, being at different parents' homes and
Which
stuff.
again feels very real for so many people. Like you
It
and I haven't
does.
dealt with that, but that's a
No.
level that's not included. Like you never picture
Exactly.
Santa as being a divorced dad.
Exactly.
Who pictures Santa that way?
Right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and I
but
think
it's
that's
so
what made it more real and grounded. And
Yeah.
Disney has done that with some other stories too, to where like
Yeah.
us personally, we have never dealt with that, but there are a lot
Yeah.
of people that, you know, that's very real for them. So yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it's a solid movie.
No, I think it's a great pick. I mean, I think
Thank
it's
you.
one of those things where it's like I absolutely love it. I remember watching it with you. I'm still old enough to remember that we had it on VHS tape, and like it came in partway through the recording, so we skipped the whole first like couple of minutes. So it came in about 10 seconds before the fire extinguisher was putting out the turkey, and then it was just kind of like, oh, there it is. Okay, we're starting off. You know, so
Yeah.
it was just kind of interesting. So that's one of those particular memory pieces with it. And then I do just think this set the stage for some really good modern Christmas movies, especially involving Santa Claus, because it showed what potential was there.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the Christmas Chronicles has such a good footing because they could steal not ideas in like the movie, but like the concept of like what you could make
Yeah.
from this. Like, I feel like it laid a really good groundwork and piece there. And then I also just feel like it's just such a classic. I mean, I just enjoy watching it. It still has good rewatch value. You know what I mean?
It really does. It really
Now,
does.
I will say, this is going to be the time I'm going to shout this out for
Okay.
us collectively and
Okay.
speak for us both. Disney, if you are watching, we need you to bring back the television series, The Santa Clauses, because we need a resolution to a lot of these plot lines that were opened up. We don't need 10 seasons. Just give us one where you bring things to a nice, neat, tidy end, make Scott a better father, help Buddy find his place. What's the daughter's name?
I'm blanking on her name now.
Help the daughter who's discovering all these powers live herself out well. We just need some resolution. So Disney, please.
That should have been a little bit more fleshed out, her part of it. And then my other
Yes.
pet peeve too, very good series, like I thought overall and the like look of it and stuff. But like I still thought Charlie should have become Santa.
Yes.
Spoiler alert if you have not seen the series. But
Yep.
he always said he's like, I want to go into the family business. But then why are we focusing on these other characters?
But then Charlie became a dentist? What the heck?
Yeah.
If you would have played it as some symbolism or like people have to grow up eventually or like these hard decisions, like I could see that, but they didn't do that. They're just like, oh, he just didn't want to. What do you mean he didn't
It's
want
just such a random like
It's a
afterthought.
random turn.
Yeah. So that was kind of my like things with
Or
it,
like this
but-
partnership with like him and Buddy could have been a cool, interesting thing.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Along with that too, I will also say like, if you're going to do it, just change the intro. I feel like that was a lot of people's problem is you make it 30 seconds in the intro was just it didn't match the show.
Off-putting and it's
awful.
weird.
It's weird.
I don't know why
Yeah.
they did that. You could have done anything else.
You could have done
You
so
have
much.
Disney money. You own so much stuff. Like, what's the
Yeah.
deal?
Well, I feel like that was a worthwhile rant. We
so.
can't just keep going.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Yeah, we could
it needed
spend
to be
hours
said.
on this,
It
but we
needed to
have a
be
lot
said.
more movies to rank.
Nope,
so-
absolutely.
So over to you then. Freddie.
Okay, yes.
For
Now,
number 8.
diverging back in, number 8, and this is a movie I would anticipate you having higher up on yours, but we'll, of course, see. Elf. I went with Elf here.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people would say this is probably low, and in some senses, just objectively, even when you tell me I have it ranked 8, I agree, it sounds low. I'll be real. But as I look through and those movies that hit me with nostalgia, Elf is such the movie that I would put on in the background while we're decorating the tree or while we're baking cookies. And that concept, like, I feel like I can be doing other things because it's just been on so much and I've seen it so much. And it has just that rewatch value where it's still funny and there's still great lines like, bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad.
Very
like, it's got these great things.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's that concept, like, but there are movies I just prefer more as far as like, if it's just like, let's just sit down and enjoy this awesome movie, I'll put it in my 8 spot. No hate. Love Elf. Have a harder time that's not higher up.
Yeah.
But yet, there it is.
Yeah.
Great film. All love.
Well, I think that's a good take on it. I mean, I will say that does make my list higher up here. I won't say specifically where yet, but I used to like that film a lot more, and it's funny because like probably Elf more than any other movie, maybe besides like Christmas Vacation, I have just more things from like socks or like a shirt and stuff. And I do love Will Ferrell. He's one of my favorite like comedic actors of all time. Him and Adam Sandler, like my two like kind of Mount Rushmore guys up there. I don't know who else is up there exactly right now.
Another podcast.
That's a podcast for another day. But what else was I gonna say? Is that Elf? Yeah, solid movie. I think it was very interesting because we don't really have a lot of Elf movies. We really don't.
Oh, really?
Most of them are like animated. Because there's like some here and there, but just like not a live action like this. And it was also cool too is that they modeled a lot of the look after Rudolph, so it was kind of cool seeing that being put in a real life setting. And I think Will Ferrell, great casting as this. I respect him, for turning down the money for Elf 2 because a lot of times, like, we make these sequels and they're just a cash grab. They're not the same, so I understand that. Will and the director, Jon Favreau, did not get along very well. So there's part of that too. So I understand if you didn't like the first time you worked with someone, I wouldn't want to work with them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So I get that. And then Ed Asner, good Santa, I thought.
Great Santa.
A little bit angry, but like,
a little bit.
It's a hard job, man.
He's got that old crotchety Santa vibe.
He does.
And I don't hate that necessarily when paired with Buddy the Elf because it really balances well.
It's two sides of the coin there.
Exactly.
Very good gang.
Like, I'm just so excited for Christmas. He's just like, I'm getting too old for this.
Yeah, exactly. I like that a lot. It has a good element to that, and they're kind of back and
forth. There's a good tension there. Yeah,
where like it almost makes you feel like sometimes to where he'd almost be like, "Do you want to be Santa? Because I don't." Like
you can take it. Take the coat. Like. Take the coat.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess that covers it for Elf then. Over to my number 8. I put the Santa Claus 2.
Right. Love it.
Thank you. A little bit of a hot take because I know for most people the first one would be the best one. But what I do like with the second one is that I think it has good lore building and builds out this world a little bit better.
Yeah, it does.
And this one I probably actually saw more than the first one because we had all these DVDs years ago, but like the first one I like kind of scratched up and ran out more than like the other ones. And then like the third one kind of got screwed up too. That was on DVD. But the second one I probably watched more than any of the others just because it worked for so long.
It did hold up.
It did. And I really just like the thought of it to where it's like of, him getting a Mrs. Claus and all that. And I like her character. I know her character is named Carol.
Yeah.
But like of who that actress is.
Carol?
Yeah. Christmas Carol. It's perfect. Like I never thought about that till like
Scott
years
Calvin,
later.
Santa
Claus.
All the details.
They thought all this through. And then like Charlie a little bit.
Just the names. It's the Santa Claus. It's the Mrs. Claus. Wow, this is a great book on words. Like, who wrote this? Shakespeare?
Right? Well, that's the other thing, too, that went, like, way over my head was, like, with these movies being, like, Santa Claus, but it's, like, Claus with an E, so, like, in a contract. But it's, like, but as kids, though, it's, like, none of us ever thought any, like, thing of that. See, I always thought, like, because there was sometimes, too, with, like, writing letters to Santa to where I put the E because I was like, maybe it's silent,
I don't know.
Maybe that's how they, spell it in France or something, I thought. But just, like,
perhaps.
But I was just like, I don't live there, but I was like, hey. Anyway, Santa Claus 2 I enjoy a lot with, like I said, them getting married. And then I also like, too, like the toy Santa that they make, obviously also played by Tim Allen. Really good. But a lot of, good, memorable lines there. Then he also has like the watch and then he's running out of magic. And then like these whole things that kind of almost remind me of some other movies. Like, you need magic to really do anything and like people believing. And it was very interesting, I thought, and seeing Charlie a little bit older and some of that. And, just I really enjoyed that a lot. And the main thing I always think about from this too, it's very random, but like at the very beginning of the movie when they're going over like the little contract on his card and then it's like better now or now. And then he's like, I can't see anything.
Oh, there
he brings up the huge like magnifying glass. Yeah. And then he's like, I gotta get married. I love that so much. But so what's your thought?
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, a great film, first off. So just like the simplest take. Yeah, I think one of the things I thought of that wasn't where I was going to go first was when you brought up Charlie. I think it also just shows so much of the reality of like fleshing out this world because as you think of Charlie, you a lot of times for a movie, I feel like we just say like, oh, here's the issues at the North Pole, here's these things, but it's like, no. What are the issues with having a dad who is Santa Claus? That's a next level thought that I don't feel like a lot of people would have thought of to write on because
No.
there is this issue of like, I as a child cannot tell anyone the coolest piece of information anyone has to share ever.
Yeah.
Like, and like that's just a cool thing that like I feel like is almost underrated or undernoticed. Of course, it's throughout the movie, but I almost feel like I at least don't pick up on that as much as I could.
Right. Yeah.
But it's such a good theme. But yeah, then you get the fleshing out of the North Pole with the, pork chop, the elf, and you got all these great things.
Yeah.
Like,
and the globe and everything and how it separates and all that stuff. And I also forgot too, not to cut you off, but like the legendary figures like Sandman and Mother Nature.
Great.
Very good.
It
like
builds a whole
It does.
verse.
It does.
Yeah.
The Easter Bunny and Cupid, like those like those castings were great. Like I don't honestly remember all like who played who in that, but like very good castings for them too.
Like I think of the guy who was in a couple of the Scooby-Doo movies was like Father Time.
Yes. Yep. I liked him a lot.
He was great. Yeah, but I think there's just so many good actors too, and it's top notch and it looks top notch. I think the way that Carol gets brought around is outstanding, and a really fun storyline, and the way that like he gets to play into who she believed in as a kid is such a cool parallel and way that goes. Yeah, there's just so much to like about that movie. Even just the parallel too of like you are a sad, strange little man. And it's like, wait a minute, Tim Allen as a toy then uses the same line when Tim Allen is a toy. And that little like
it's so fun.
Wow, this is I guess just if Tim Allen was turned into a toy, this is like what he'd say, I guess.
It's
probably a snake in his boot. I don't know.
Very meta and like fourth wall breaking.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. So no, love that. I think it's cool. I mean, I can go on and on. That's just a great movie. I mean, they'll be coming back up. So
over to your number 7.
Well, you see, I have to go with the classic that you've already covered, Home Alone.
Ooh, okay.
So, which you went Home Alone 2, I guess.
I did.
So I guess same franchise. We can all agree Home Alone 3 is not where it's at. It wasn't a bad film, but it didn't really match the Home Alone series.
I've only seen clips of that. I have to watch 3, and hard to capture the magic of the first 2.
Yeah, we'll put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
Home Alone 1, great film, and therefore I do have Home Alone 1 ranked above Home Alone 2, Home Alone 2 ranked above Home Alone 1.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know. I just really, like, for number 1, I truly enjoy it. I mean, there's the fun takes of, like, Buzz's girlfriend, which is really the director's son with a wig on, which I think is a hilarious way of doing that.
The behind the scenes.
Yep, the behind the scenes, like, the concepts of, like, what did Kevin's dad do to, like, pay for vacation to Paris for,
I feel like he was in the mob or something.
Probably
like,
something nefarious.
Yeah.
Maybe a super rich, prominent lawyer. I don't know. Anyways, gigantic house.
Right?
It's interesting. I don't know if you've seen the take on, like, they posted the, like, what that house looks like now because they've done, like, some modernization. Super interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Really a travesty in a lot of ways.
It is. It does not look like the same house at all.
No.
It's, like, totally unrecognizable.
Anyways, enough said on the house. I think it's a great film. I love the traps. I love the initial inspiration because there's no groundwork like the second movie plays upon. It's just Kevin's figuring this out for the first time. He really thinks his family's disappeared. He's playing in with this scary shoveler guy, which is kind of a unique relationship piece. So what you were saying about the bird lady. And like, nope, just because they look scary doesn't mean they are scary. And like helping him reconcile with his son is such an underrated storyline from within that.
It is. Nobody talks about that
also,
very much.
One of those satisfying sounds in cinema. Shovel dude conking those bad guys out with the shovel.
Yep.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Like what a scene.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Just like, it just, I can hear it in here perfectly. It's so good. Just all the traps and stuff, the cans of paint going over the line and the, going out to the fort and like starting the line on fire and like so many different good trap elements. And just also like, of course, those lessons learned too in the sense of like, I do actually want my family, even though I don't always get along with them. And finding a place within that. So great film.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot for it. I don't want to talk too much about Home Alone right now because it does pop up in my list again. So
sure. We'll have this discussion.
Maybe talk about that a little bit more later on. So solid placement. I can't complain with where you got it there. So I would say for my number 7, this might be kind of a little bit of a different choice for this list, but is also another kind of Santa related movie. Is Fred Claus?
Okay.
Vince Vaughn and what is his name that plays his brother Santa?
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
I like him as a Santa. I know he's kind of a little bit more angry and distraught, but it also fits the story
because he's also like having these hard health issues.
Yeah, and his brother's kind of an idiot. So like, there's all that. Like, I mean, I don't think he's the worst guy, his brother Fred, but he's kind of like, you know, he's Vince Vaughn. He plays the same character in every movie, but I love it, you know, because like these kind of like extra wordy like comebacks and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know,
very witty.
Yeah. That's it. Not word, but yeah, it's just like it's so like. They're just so good. There's something just about that.
Yeah.
Like, is like 2000s comedies. Like, I think Vince Vaughn, he's one of like the heavy hitters for me.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I've always loved Fred Claus a lot. And I like too that like he has to kind of step up later and take over for his brother. And the other thing that I love too is like the montage later when he's delivering presents. And there's this song by the Waitresses called Christmas Wrapping, which I did not know that before that, but it fits so perfectly. And every time I hear that, like, I love that. You know, they're definitely like a one-hit wonder, but it's so fitting, and I like the look of the North Pole in that. And then I can't think of his name, but the guy that played kind of like the main elf in that, he's been in some other things too.
Oh yeah.
But I liked his character too.
I know who you're talking about.
And then his like kind of little storyline for stuff, and he's like a good friend to Fred, you know, and I thought it was pretty good. It's kind of, you know, like a little bit different, a little bit goofy, kind of more off the cuff, I guess. And you also have like a little bit of origin of Santa, and then how Fred's kind of like put on the back burner. It's like, well, you know, he does all this stuff, but what about me? You know, he was the older brother. So it's like a very unique story.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, that's definitely, I would say to me, and I don't mean this the bad way, that's the biggest surprise of your list so far, I would say, as far as like one I didn't expect as much. But like, I still think it's a great movie. I thoroughly enjoy Fred Claus. I think it's got some of those like anti-hero vibes going on pieces there.
For sure.
I do think it also is like very interesting because you look at it at first and you're like, well, okay, Fred is just like a lazy guy. He's not doing enough. He's got all these bad qualities, his brother Santa, and he's just not living up to like the family name. And like you could dive in so much further.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think then you can also take that next level of like, my brother is Santa Claus. Like, holy crap, talk identity crisis issues. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like now on top of the two, like, oh, now I'm immortal, like the movie makes him. You know what I mean? That concept, like, what do I do with my time? Because I don't like my brother, because we have this hard thing of like him always outshining and him scaring away my friends and like doing things even inadvertently with like the bird scene and like, but then there's also the side of that of like, well, but like he also is Santa Claus. I was a good guy, so I can't truly dislike him. So like, you know, you got this casual Santa Claus's brother who's immortal living in New York City and just like doing whatever he wants. And like, it's a super interesting concept and like take on the Santa Claus series. And like, you know, also that concept of the weight of responsibility when to talk to Paul Giamatti and like the stress that would put on what it looks like to support family, even when like things have maybe been tough recently. So yeah, I think it's a really good one. Kevin Spacey's character in that is very good too. And like
as the evil
him getting to be Superman, like that conversation. One of my favorites from any Christmas film. Like that's just a great scene.
It is.
Of like going from like this tough guy, this hard-nosed banker, and then it's just like, what do you think, Superman? It's like, wow, this is just like so well done.
It really broke down the barriers.
Exactly. And it's like very sudden. It's not a transformation you saw building. It's a transformation to where it's just like, this guy is Santa Claus for a reason. He knows exactly what to share. He knows exactly what to say to get that guy to turn that corner. So I don't feel like it's the scene everybody thinks of in that movie, but for me, I'm just like, iconic. I love it. I think it's so good.
It's got good heart to it, I think.
It does.
The other thing I like too is that boy that kind of sort of like lives on the street, doesn't really have
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I like that too. And Fred, like even from earlier on, that he like befriends him and he's like, hey man, he's kind of like looking out for him and stuff. And then
Fred,
doesn't he like end up adopting him later?
I think so.
Okay, see, I like that. That was another like, you know, part of it too, to where it's like maybe Fred wasn't always a bad guy from the start, which I know he wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
But
he's not an evil character.
Not an evil character, but he's just kind of like, you know, it is what it is. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So
yeah.
Okay. No, solid pick. Solid pick.
So that's my thoughts. So over to your number 6 then.
Yeah. We've discussed it, but I want to bring it up again. The Santa Claus 2.
Okay.
Now comes up for me. As we've said, excellent film, of course, continues the series in a really good and intentional way. I think that's very hard to understate, because that is part of what made that a franchise. Is not just the fact that it was the second movie, but it was the second movie done with authenticity and in a good way. And like what felt like it was true to the storyline and true to the problems that family would have experienced, you know, really addressing issues like you suddenly have to get married or not become Santa Claus. Like the fact that we come up with all these creative solutions for our problems, building a fake Santa wasn't even necessary. Just put Bernard in charge for a couple months and just say, Bernard's going to be around. He'll answer some stuff. He's been doing this for 1,200 years, you know, or however long. Like,
I know.
It's one of those things to where it's just like we so often overthink our problems. And I feel like that was one of those ones too, Or that same concept of like, I have to get married in less than a month. Like, how would I go about doing that? Like, I'm going to go on this date and wear this really bad sweater and drive a minivan. This is just absolutely abysmal. But that concept, like sometimes we overthink our problems so much and miss those simple solutions that are right in front of us, even though they look different. Like Carol, when she and Scott first talk, no driving whatsoever. But like,
No.
as they get into it and you see the heart that she actually has behind the cold exterior,
Yeah.
it makes sense. So yeah, I think it's a great one. I do love seeing the North Pole get fleshed out, especially I would say.
Yeah.
And the Council of Legendary Figures is an underrated scene, I would say too, that I kind of wish they actually would have done more with. It would have been a really cool, like almost some like extra clips for like after the movie, like on the DVD, like the bonus content.
Yeah.
I so could have seen something like that where you're like diving in here, there, every, but like probably not worthwhile for them to film, but like I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. No, I think that would have been a good idea. I don't really have a lot of other comments than that,
I
but
was gonna say we have discussed.
good layers to it, good heart, added to the story well, a good, solid sequel.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of my only note, so good pick.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Then I guess it's my number 6 then.
Hey,
I would put the first Home Alone at number 6.
good film.
I picked I put this one here because like I do like the second one, and there are some like sequels later that like people don't really like, but there's some of them that I find decent. But the first one, best one, first time to do all that, and it's still even now like. If you didn't think about like the rest of the series and stuff, is that this is kind of like a very stand on its own sort of story, because like there's not really another thing to where it's like of anybody else building traps for burglars and stuff. It's like, why don't you just call the police? But it's like, we have so much runtime left, and what are we gonna do? But
another hour of film to film.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like the whole thing. Like sometimes, like, well, that's wrapped up, but then you look at like the time, be like, there's like still over an hour left. So like, it's suspending your disbelief in order to make it work. But that's any movie ever. But I love it too. Just like his home, like the setting of that, and like what you would do if you were like 9 years old, home alone by yourself.
Yeah.
And also too, like, I love the naiveness that he has to where like in the first one, he really believes he made his family disappear, as I kind of said before.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more heart and magic to it, I feel like. And then him going out and like buying stuff from the store for the first time, or like he does the mac and cheese dinner, and then befriending like the the shoveling guy who was like kind of like this scary like kind of urban legend and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of just like that felt so relatable, because there's always stories like for in everybody's life to where like we make up these things about people or something that, and a lot of times they're not true. It'd be like, don't go by that house, or these kind of things. But
like a Boo Radley situation.
Yeah, exactly. To where it's like not everything is cracked up to what it actually is. And if you actually take the time to talk to a person, you get to know them for who they are. It's like they're not a bad guy. They're just going through it sometimes, But just it like some of it too, like I said, maybe now not so much in today's age, but it kind of feels like, a bit more grounded than some other stuff, because you don't have Santa in this or different things. It's just kind of like, what am I going to do with my life now that I'm on my own? But then being like, but then him kind of flipping the script to be like, after like doing all the things he wants to do and being like, have free will, which is like, you do have, but it's a little bit harder for when you're a kid, because you do have to follow a set of rules more. But then also like to flip it back later to be like, family is important. And like you said before, we don't always get along, but we can figure things out. And, that's what Christmas is about, is being together with the people that matter most to you. So it just has a lot more heart, I think, than the second one for me. The first one just really kind of dials that in more, and it feels more special in that way. So any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, on your takes on this film, I think one of the underrated scenes that came to mind, just because I was kind of trying to think from that angle too, is when he's in the church with the shoveling guy, and kind of like that reflective of like, you've got the choir music, but then also like, I don't get along with my family, like that truth and honesty that's coming out, and like the way that's being discussed and gone through, along with just this concept I think you brought up too. It's like, it's a very interesting take for a movie, because like on the one hand, it's suspending disbelief. On the other hand, it's like, if you're a kid who thinks like, if I tell the police, I'll probably get taken to a home or something because my family disappeared.
Yeah.
He's probably not calling the police. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could kind of see his angle there. It's never stated, but I could see it.
It does make sense when you think about it.
It also hits on some of those like great 90s movies themes of like the movie like Mousetrap, if you're familiar.
Yep.
And some of those concepts. Because it's like, there is something fun about saying like, this is a house. We all spend time in our house. What if it looked different? And like, what if you were able to use some of those things around your house? Like, what if you had to create this maze for people to go through in home defense, and like not something boring, like it's like, no.
Yeah.
What if can of paint down the stairwell?
Right.
Like, I like the creativity that comes out and what it sets up, because I think it's a fun angle to open up a lot of doors for other movies. So no, nothing else to say. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah. So I guess over to your number 5.
Yeah, number 5. We're in the top 5. We made it.
Hey, we did that.
But yeah, I think this one just cinematic masterpiece. Just going back to our roots. Truly just a good Christmas staple. The 1966 classic, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, the original one that aired on TV. I mean,
Boris Karloff.
yes, just chef's kiss. Just great, great film in the S tier now, and it's just excellent stuff. I don't, honestly was thinking this might even be a little bit higher for me, but it's of course hard because all the movies at the top are just really good movies. There's so many good Christmas movies. It's just great. The music is excellent. It feels super Seussian, the
Does.
looks and the visuals, super Seussian. You know what I mean? The creativity, the way that like you get to like remember the way that his face like does the like curl up upon itself thing when he does that big smile, and
Yeah.
you've got Max who's there, and like you get to see this first real visualization and like what Max has become in these other renditions of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and like all this excellence to just packed in this like excellent half-hour long TV special that's just perfect, enjoyable. It's bite-sized. It's got a redemption story. It's got an understandable motive in the sense of it's just like feeling so alone and therefore I acted out, and this concept of like all this stuff that we get too fixated on, but then it's not about this. Like there's just so many good, simple lessons that you can pull from that one half-hour bit, along with fun music and songs. Like otherwise, why would I ever have thought before in my life of a 39.5-foot pole? It never would have come up,
Never.
or anything like that. So great. I could go on and on about that particular one. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good placement for it. That did not make my list.
That surprises me. I'll be honest.
But I've always liked watching that every year. It was from the very first time I watched it, instantly memorable and a classic
Yeah.
right away for me. There's just something so nice about like the simplicity of that, and I thought it brought the book to life very well. I've never
Yes.
actually read the book, obviously, like when I was little, but I know a lot of people do around Christmas time, and I think it tells a good story, like you said about being alone and not feeling included, but then like also like we get caught up in the material world of Christmas, and like Christmas is my favorite holiday still, but like it is very commercialized more than any other
Yeah.
holiday, and it's the stories being like upfront about that, but then it's like you said, you have the flip to where it's like it's about being together, and it doesn't matter about these things we buy. It's just about like again the time we spend together. I know it sounds cliche, but it's like we're only here
Oh, it's
once,
true.
and
Yeah.
each Christmas is important. So yeah, that's all I kind of got to
No,
say.
I think it's really true. I think it's
Yeah.
also just interesting. The last comment I would make is just like, and look at what it's become too, in the sense that there's been these other couple of renditions because people just enjoyed that one so much. And like, honestly, I would also argue the Grinch as a franchise has been wildly successful
Yeah.
because even if I firmly rank number 3 as the new Grinch, the Benedict Cumberbatch one,
Yeah.
it's not because it's a bad film.
Yeah.
It's just the other two are masterpieces.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
and that's just still a great movie as opposed to that. So like,
It is.
I just think it's so interesting, like that you have just such a wildly successful franchise that's all based off of this half-hour 60s animation. Kind of interesting when you look at it through that lens.
It really is. It really is. And that, it's still just a classic for so many people.
Yes.
Every year it's on TV every year, and, people watch it on, streaming like we did the other day. Solid. And I mean, it's like it had to have been, such a good movie
Yeah.
for these other two movies to come out. And yeah, the three movies as a whole, like not a bad film, the whole thing. It's very interesting that such, unique takes on kind of the same story, really, but like just done so well, I think, where they go in
Yeah.
each one. So
Absolutely.
I have really no complaints. And the newer Grinch from 2018 with Benedict Cumberbatch, I saw that in theaters. So it's like
Yeah.
I have a little bit of nostalgia for that too,
Sure.
even though it's not really that long ago, but
Yeah.
it's like that was the only Grinch movie I saw in theaters. They did re-release the one from 2000 this year, and I haven't seen it in theaters yet. I don't know if I will or not.
Yeah.
But anyway, all three are solid.
Absolutely.
So, now
Yeah.
breaking into my top
Yeah.
5 is I put Elf.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
I knew it had to be.
Yeah, I kind of would have felt bad if I wouldn't have included it at all, just because it's like it is kind of one of my go-tos every year. Like like over time, it has become more of kind of a background pick.
Yeah.
Because like again, if you would have asked me like years ago, like it probably would have been number 2 or 3, probably.
Sure.
It's never been my number 1, but it is just it's so unique. Like I said, that we don't have a lot of elf stories like this, or especially not a live action, and just the look of like the sets and everything and that how they use like forced perspective is really cool. That
Mhm.
it's like, he was still there with them and it's not just like green screens and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really unique. And then, Ed Asner, I thought was a good Santa. Will Ferrell played this well. I don't really know who else could have like been cast in that role besides Will. I think that was another one of those examples for like a movie to where you're like, I think that was just a perfect casting. It was just meant to
Yeah.
be, and I'm
It was
happy
excellent.
for
Yeah.
why it is that way. And then, the interesting thing of him being a human and stuff. And then, I thought his dad was a very good character too,
Yep.
Buddy's dad. And then you also have his actual dad played by James Caan. That was very interesting. Their dynamic, and that
Yeah.
to learn too, they didn't really like each other all that much. So it
But
kinda
that made a
shows
lot of sense once you looked at the movie.
it does. It shows on screen. There's so many movies like that to where it really comes through to where like their actual dynamics in real life towards like, I don't really care for this guy, but paycheck's a paycheck.
But that worked also here. Yeah.
It did. It did. Felonies are felonies, as we always say. But
It's true.
very quotable, very memorable. So many lines of that, and I love like him building like the little Lego city thing, and then like
Yeah.
destroys it the next day. And then with the Santa, fake Santa, and just some of it's just so goofy. But it's like you also got to think too. It's like when you've been a person kind of just cooped up with all these elves for years. Like no offense to the elves, but just like it's got to be hard because like you don't know what the real world's like. And then even when Santa like telling him about all these different things, then like you
Yeah.
see him on the streets for the first time and he doesn't know what to do.
Absolutely. I think it's also an interesting inversion of what you would so often expect from a movie based around the holidays that involves elves, because instead of here are people going and they're discovering elves in the North Pole, here's an elf discovering our human world. And it's all those things that we take for granted. Like you and I see a sign that says world's best cup of coffee. We know most likely they have not actually won a competition to be the world's best cup of coffee. But that concept, like he's just discovering life, and it's very interesting and unique because like here's this like 30-year-old man that's like discovering all these things that we just take as a given and for granted. So I think it's an interesting inversion of that. And yeah, I think it's extremely quotable. I think it's extremely fun. I think there's something different for everyone in it. I mean, you hit the concept of like him having a child that was unexpected for Buddy's actual dad. You've got, that older elf who got dedicated to his work, who was then able to adopt, and what a blessing that was. And like, there's kind of some different angles for everybody, along with just that concept of belief too, and how powerful of a thing that can be in a cause too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great film.
Yeah. Thank you. So over to your number 4.
Yeah, so for my number 4, I flip-flopped this with How the Grinch Stole Christmas a couple times, but I ended up on Home Alone 2. And I do put it above Home Alone 1, not by much. I think part of the reason why I would argue, not it's a huge argument why you could do so, is the fact that there's even a debate. Because typically for a second film in a series, it's just not as good as the original, and it's pretty blatantly not as good as the original. The fact that this is definitely a conversation you can have where this is not necessarily like clear and obvious, like, oh, absolutely, the first one was so good, then it went downhill, I think says a lot about the movie, because I think frankly, like, they're pretty 1A, 1B in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Of course, you got to make tough choices when you're talking something like Christmas movies here. But I just think that's a testament to how good it was. I think they were able to make it fun and creative. They really used the location of New York well, as you said. You got in Central Park, the Plaza Hotel. Like you hit all these things that just felt really good, and hit the right concepts. The Duncan's Toy Chest was nice and creative and inventive, and like it was just a place where you felt like you only just now we're learning the name, but you care so much about this place and you want it to succeed in the mission that they have of like all these toys for kids and the way of doing it. And like you were just bought in. And I think that way that they were able to create buy-in there was so big. Kevin living out his like childhood dreams and stuff like that in this location was just amazing. So yeah, I think it's just an excellent, well done Christmas film. And then even to the concept of like, how well does the mom know her kid? Like he's going to go to the place with the biggest Christmas tree. And like, that's where that's going to be seen. So
yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah, I like your take on it, and I think that's a good placement because I didn't really say it, I guess, earlier, but it's like I feel like those two are very interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really a solid like superior film because like yes, they are kind of a lot of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess too, it's like in the second one he's not like in his home, so it's like he's just at like his aunt and uncle's like place that's being renovated, so it's like a little bit different, but it's like he still is though like in the like one of the world's like biggest cities on his own. Like he was in Chicago in the first one, like that's where he lives, so it's like not a small city either.
True.
But it's also different being in his own neighborhood and stuff.
I was gonna say you're in like a suburb as opposed to like nope.
Yeah,
in New
yeah,
York.
toward then to where he's just, like, running around and stuff, and then it's just, like, yeah, just all that stuff. The other thing that I meant to mention earlier too is I do like in the second one, though, like, the hotel staff because you have, like, Rob Schneider, I believe, as, like,
I believe
a
so.
bellhop or something, then you have Tim Curry.
Tim
is, like
Curry's
he
great.
was really great.
Underrated
People
character in that film.
Yes, people do not talk about Tim Curry enough, I feel like,
No.
because like, people talk about him as, like, Pennywise and, like, a couple other
Some
things,
things, yeah.
but just, like, very talented actor, really
He
talented.
really is. He's got a lot of range.
He does, and to where it's like, even like when he's playing like a little bit of a more menacing, it's just like you still want to watch him because he's still
Captivating.
he is,
Yeah.
he is, he really is. And I don't know, maybe it's just the British accent. I don't know what it is, but what was I going to say? Yeah, done very well. And then kind of a fun thing I was going to say that I saw not too long ago is that the Plaza Hotel, they actually do like a special
I
Home
saw
Alone
that,
package for like a few grand or something. I'm almost like, maybe I should just do it one year.
Why not?
Yeah, I was like, it would be fun. And then they do the whole ice cream stuff and all that. And
That's cool.
yeah, they even do too, like a thing for Louise too, because she had her movies.
Yeah, I know
there.
that. That's actually what I thought of.
Yeah, yeah, because she, I guess, has her own suite for that too. And I was like, that would be fun.
Eloise
Those are ones too that could have been an honorable mention. Eloise at Christmas.
There's so many.
So good, so good. We
talked about so many that were our honorable mentions to our honorable mentions.
Yeah, we could really have just made an episode just about honorable mentions.
Yeah, even both of the Barney Christmas movies. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah, just solid.
Elmo Saves Christmas.
Love those. Love those.
Yep. Oh, yeah. There's so many.
Yeah. So I guess it's my number 4.
I was going to say that was me. Yeah, back to you.
My number 4. There are so many different versions of this, but this is my personal favorite. Is A Christmas Carol from 2009. This is the animated one with Jim Carrey.
Oh yeah,
and this also used motion capture, like they did with the Polar Express, but this was 5 years later, so it looks so much better and cleaner. Yeah. And it's not, you don't have the like uncanny valley aspect. Like you said too with the Polar Express, it does look more fitting with the illustrations to that book. Yeah. So thinking back, it does make more sense, which I did not personally read the book, but I've just seen some pictures here and there. But I think that was a great aspect to bring up with that. Yeah. But back to A Christmas Carol is I've always loved A Christmas Carol. I love pretty much almost every version of this, as I've said. The Jim Carrey one, I guess I just have a little bit more nostalgia for because I saw this one in theaters too, and it's one that I rewatch every year. Just, I don't know. It's like, I know the story and I know how it goes, and it's like, I've, been there and done that, but it's just like, it's so good and enjoyable. And that was a good casting for that. And with the motion capture worked well because you actually have Jim using his facial expressions and they come through with Scrooge as well, and just so dynamic in like all the things he can do, and that was a great casting for that. There's been many good Scrooges, but I feel like Jim Carrey was a good fit for that. Maybe Jim Carrey should just do more Christmas movies.
And he's about due. It's been what, about 10 years? We got to get him up here for another one.
Yeah, too long in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say to that is that I would go back and make some edits to my list of honorable mentions because that's a good film. It's definitely probably above a few of those on the cut that made that honorable mentions bit. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah. Okay.
I also think it's so hard not including a Christmas Carol of any sort on my personal list. I really struggled with that. For me, it would have been that like Mickey's Christmas Carol.
So good.
Which I think is great.
For just a 25-minute movie, but so solid.
Great.
That could have been an honorable mention for me,
like
too.
You get in with the Scrooge McDuck, who of course is based off of Ebenezer Scrooge, and like it just makes so much sense. And the layering's there because of the other ways you've been exposed to him within pop culture. Yep. So like I think it just makes a ton of sense. But like both of those two, I think even it's never been my biggest one, but like the Muppets Christmas Carol.
So good. I just watched that 2 years ago for the first time. So good. With Michael Caine.
Yeah.
So good.
I just had a hard time not including it.
I love that.
Say, I love that it made your list because it probably should have made mine. And
I was surprised.
Tough choices.
I was surprised it didn't, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Lots of tough choices. But yeah, so no, love the pick. I think it's great. I think it's a well-told tale, even when it's been repeated. Like they all did their own little twist to do it right, and I think your version is quite excellent.
Thank you. I guess just my very last thing I was going to say with that is that so many different versions. Mickey's very good. The Muppet one was so good. The Muppet is like a lot of people's number ones. It's not mine. I'd say it's probably my number 3. Also, some of the live action ones, like some of them are hit or miss. There was one from I think 1984 with 85 with George C. Scott. Very good. Probably the best like live live action one that like doesn't involve like the Muppets. You know, that was very good.
Yeah.
And then yeah, Mickey's I've always loved a lot.
I also like the
Yeah.
riff of Scrooged.
Yes,
That's a very good one.
Scrooge was
It's
good.
that slight twist, but I like it.
Yeah, Scrooge was a good one with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
That one, you know, like is not my favorite too, but like I've only seen that really once all the way through, but I
Yeah.
did like it. That was good. There's also Spirited with Ryan Reynolds and Will
Yeah,
Ferrell,
I
which is
forget
a
about
riff
that.
on that, and
Yep.
it's a little bit more musical. That one I enjoyed a lot too.
I've not actually seen that, so I
don't
couldn't
think
even rank it.
I don't think it's talked about enough, but it was really good. I only
Oh.
watched that once
Sure.
for the record, but that was very good. And then
Okay.
there's also a lot of other things too that like kind of take that same kind of a story, but they flip it on its head. Like actually, for example, I saw this last year for the
Mhm.
first time was A Ghost of Girlfriend's Past is kind of like a Christmas
Oh, I could
Carol.
see that.
That was a very good movie too. It's a little bit like, you know, outside the norm of the classic story of this,
Mhm.
but I thought it was kind of a good angle because I've always thought like if they ever made one to where like if Scrooge like got back with his girlfriend that he like would just kind of
Yeah.
let go. But
Yeah.
I was like, maybe that's not exactly what they were going for with that, but I was like,
Put
it's
a
kind of
riff
the
on it,
closest
yeah,
that we
there's some
got.
parallels,
But
sure.
yeah,
I see that.
yeah, so that one is one I would recommend as well.
Noted.
I think I've talked enough about A Christmas Carol, but over to your number 3.
Yeah, so for my number 3, I have to go with the original The Santa Claus, and I just think it's a great film. I think it sets up a stellar franchise that is incredibly impactful, even underrated in some senses, I would say, just in the way that it's been so impactful for Christmas movies in general and making those a foundational and formal part for so many people's childhoods and family experiences. Tim Allen plays a great part. There's a reason this movie started so much more because it was such a worthwhile film. I think also the way that they were able to just in that first film dive into all those like more complex themes, like the complicated family life that is not quite so simple, like actually giving you a glimpse of the North Pole, like the identity crisis of you are now Santa Claus and like you were something totally different than what you were before.
Yeah.
And like they're able to really dive into those themes and do them very well, even though they don't actually hit on a deeper level in some senses, like they do at the same time.
Yeah.
And so very interesting both ends. So I love that. I think Tim Allen's a great actor. I think Charlie's excellent. All of the elves, stellar casting, play those parts incredibly well.
They do.
You
Love
know,
Bernard.
As much as I dislike Neil, I also love how Neil's character is played because it's so perfect.
It is.
It's very interesting in all that. Yeah, Bernard, the way that he's there, the snow globe concept of that connection point and like always being there. I just think it's a great film, and I think it had to make the top 3.
I think that's a really good placement for it. I, really always enjoyed that too. Obviously, it made my list earlier in this ranking. But yeah, I always loved the Santa Claus. With that stuff, I really love of like how they went about that and everything of building out this kind of unique story in this way. Because before this, in really sense, like there's not really one to where like again, like just a regular guy becomes Santa. There's not really a lot of those like that. And it's actually interesting too. Is like I'm not going to say too much about it, but it was a lot darker, like in the initial like thought for their script. Then they kind of dialed it back, and then Tim Allen was kind of like, "That's funny," just like.
Yeah.
But it's like it is a family movie, so you can kind of only do so much with that. But yeah, love that a lot. Love the look of the reindeer. I just love the look of the workshop, and it made sense to have it like under the ice and stuff. So it's like, well, you wouldn't see anything, and then just that whole stuff, and then how they do that in other movies, how that sets it up. I love kind of like the montage scenes of like him delivering stuff where he's like, my back's killing me. You ever try to shove a sea kayak down a chimney? I love that stuff. He's like, it's been dogs barking, guns going off, Yeah. So I love that. Where you kind of have like the 2 Christmases with him too.
Yeah.
It's to where like you have the first one to where he's just like he thinks it's a dream and he's like, I'm being roped into this.
When I wake up, I'm getting a CAT
I'm getting
scan.
a CAT scan. Yeah, I love that. And then you also see like the progression throughout the year of him changing into Santa, but then also too like the whole custody battles that still goes on because his ex-wife and Neil, they kind of think he's going crazy, and he's like, I can't do anything about this. He's like, I shave the morning and the afternoon, I look like this.
Not even the afternoon. Sometimes it's immediately after.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in big trouble. Yeah.
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 So I love that stuff. And then I also like the year later, like when it goes to like the next Christmas, and then he's like fully Santa and looks all like that and stuff.
Yep.
But so I enjoyed that a lot. And then my other thing too is that you talked about Neil. Very well written character.
Yeah.
The thing that I will say with that is I feel bad because like I did not like Judge Reinhold for a lot of years because he's like, in like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and other things. I was like, oh, I hate that guy. He's Neil. But it's just like sometimes we get so attached to characters, we almost feel like that's who they are.
That tells you he played a good character.
He did. And it's like, he's not a doctor, he's a psychiatrist. He's like, well, he listens to me. Yeah. Then he charges you for it. But anyway.
No, I think it's a great one. And there's so many iconic scenes like got some packages. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll leave the door open, leave me here. And it's like, 18 mail trucks
Yeah,
driving away.
yeah.
It's like,
He's like, wait, there's a mistake. Kind of. That's essentially what he's saying.
or even like the one-liners of Tim Allen in there too, like when Charlie's dressed up as Santa Claus, and
Yeah,
like he's like, well, he's in the bedroom wearing his galoshes and like
jumping up and down
jumping
with
out
his
of bed.
galoshes. Yeah.
And he's just like, I don't care about what Neil's doing.
Where's Charlie? Yeah, I know. I just love that. He just was
Hilarious.
a perfect fit for that. Like,
Yeah.
it's so interesting too to think like he had like one of the biggest shows on TV at the time with
Yeah.
Home Improvement. I was
yeah.
almost gonna say Tool Time, but that's his show in the
Yeah.
show. But anyway, it's funny that you have like the kind of like like hardworking blue collar guy. Then he's Santa, so it's just it's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
And then he's Buzz Lightyear. It's like
Yeah.
not too long
He's
after.
got a lot
that,
of
so it's
range
like,
in a lot of ways, which is interesting.
does.
The amount of range that he shows, considering he plays the same person in so many
he does. He really plays himself in
It's
everything.
complex both and.
It is, but it fits so well somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm losing track here.
No
I'm just
worries.
going off about Neil.
Neil will do that to you.
My number 3 would be National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Okay.
A few years ago, I thought would be in my number 1 or 2.
Sure.
But I rewatched this just a few days ago as well. Not all these on my list I've rewatched this year as of yet. But Christmas Vacation, always solid, very funny. I'm a big Chevy Chase guy.
Yep.
Like him a lot. In the 80s, he was kind of like maybe not number 1, but he was like up there in like probably like top 2 or 3 like comedic actors at that time. I wish he wasn't so difficult to work with, for other actors and stuff, because he would have been in a lot more like good stuff, I think. I know I'm kind of talking for him and I don't know him
you're fine.
at all, but
that seems to be the reputation, though. Yes.
But yeah, I do like Chevy Chase, and I love that a lot. The casting is great. You actually have a young Johnny Galecki, who was later in Big Bang Theory. He's in this.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, then you have Randy Quaid, as Cousin Eddie.
Yep.
And it's such a good dynamic, because it's like it is like that kind of like old school like 80s slapstick stuff, and some of those work for me and some don't. This does. It has a good balance, and it's like kind of a bit over the top sometimes, but it fits well, and it like I think kind of brings it all together like in the end, where it has good heart to it. Family and Christmas can kind of be messy and kind of all over the place sometimes, so that kind of felt real. Sometimes things do hit the fan and don't go our ways, towards like, and maybe you do get mad about like the tree not going together right, or the lights, and it's like you have like the little crash out kind of thing. It's like, as a guy, I feel like we do that a lot of times, where it's like, but it's just it's so funny and so memorable, iconic lines, and the rant that he goes on is great, and just so many things. I love Christmas Vacation. I mean, I'm wearing the shirt right now, but and it's up there with our DVDs. But very special to me, and it's one I'm sure I will rewatch every year. Your thoughts?
See it. I mean, for me, it's just one I don't feel like I watched as much, so I don't feel like I have the attachment in that sense. So, like, therefore, lack of nostalgia didn't make my list in that sense. Not because I don't think it's a good film.
Yeah.
So I would say all those pieces there. I think it's a great example of that movie that really plays into this concept of we all have thoughts and ideas of what Christmas should be and what it's going to look like and how it's going to be. And then it doesn't go that way. And it's an extreme example of that, of course.
It is.
In so many of these senses. But also like the challenge of like having family over that maybe you're butting heads with, the challenge of wanting to get like lights and stuff up. But also like you are still working and doing these things. These concepts of getting things wrapped up at work for the holidays. And like to be able to be at home and like enjoy time with your family. And like all these different elements that go into making Christmas that like on the one hand are so joyful, on the one hand can become such a stressor when you start to look at them that way. And like you start to see how Clark ended up where he's at and his high stress points in the movies, and like almost facing this like midlife crisis burnout bit unexpectedly.
Yeah.
But it also then you think about it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. I could see how this came from. I feel like it's one of those movies, the more I become an adult, the more I'm like, I see how we ended up here.
Yeah.
This is not just dad's going off the rails. This is like, oh no, I identify with dad in some way. Like the Clark in this one. So yeah, I think it's a good film. I could see why it cracks in there. It's got a lot of those iconic scenes and phrases and things that just make you latch onto it. So
it does. Very, very quotable, and things you can put on a mug, or on a magnet. And you kind of see things from more of his point of view, and like, things don't go how they are planned, like about 95% of the time. We have these big plans and ideas. They don't always turn out. Also too, it's like, he did bring that upon himself of having, the whole family there. But it's like, there's also the pressure of too, though. It's like, just trying to make a good Christmas for everyone and it be memorable, because I think you see some of that too, to where he's like watching the old movies in the attic and he's like, remembering how those were. And he's like, oh, I'd like to get that nostalgia back. And I feel like us too in real life, we feel like that, towards like, how can we make it special for ourselves? So that was his thing. He was trying really hard to make it special. And then also too, it was hard because like he's a, hardworking guy trying to provide, and then he didn't get the bonus, and then money is tight because also too, it's like for that
Mhm.
pool, that was like most of the money he had left. He didn't have enough to cover the check he
Yeah.
wrote. So it's like this could sink us and everything. So it's just that aspect too. It's like weighing on him as another stressor on top of everything else. So
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Again, as you look at it, it's very, very easy to build up and be like, "Oh, I understand so much what's going on here."
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I can see it.
So over back to you.
Yeah, top 2, big times.
Yeah, yeah, we're there.
Cinematic masterpiece. Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This could have easily been number 1. It's a great film. I have no qualms with it. It is excessively quotable.
Yes.
I love going back and forth with you on it, not even around Christmas, but throughout
All
the
year.
So it's highly up there in those senses for us as a family. I think there's so many different things to latch onto, whether you want to look at Max and see kind of some of his experience, whether you want to hop in on Cindy Lou Who and just the identity of like, what does it mean to have a good Christmas? What does it mean to, be a part of this? Like, do I need to be feeling something more than I am? And like all those feelings, you can hop in on the Grinch himself, who's clearly running away from something and kind of dealing with a lot of those feelings and things. You've got, a a character that you don't like in the mayor, who's like kind of that guy of like, oh, you just kind of feel off about him. You see the mom who's trying to decorate her house better, and then Martha May, who's got all this money and ability to do it differently. That light cannon is awesome.
It is.
It's super sick. If I had the money to get that for you, I would.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
They actually shot that in reverse, I realized, which makes sense that you wouldn't be able to,
like
actually
reeler
make
it. Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. Great film. I mean, again, highly quotable. I think just the way that like he gets to just be himself. It's really like Jim Carrey just becomes the Grinch. Like
He
if
does.
I literally had to live in this skin, and he kind of does for the film.
He really
like,
does.
What would this be like?
Yeah.
Who would I be knowing this backstory? And he like takes that on fully, and it's so well lived out. Again, I truly think it is a absolute masterpiece. So love it.
Very well said. I don't have a lot of thoughts on that right now because I will comment on that a little further in the list. Spoiler alert. I think very well said. Just cinematic masterpiece, endlessly, quotable. In with my friends as well. Like we always, send different things to each other, or even like just trying to plan, like events out where like I'm booked. Like even just that stuff. Like my friends and I would go back and forth with that all the time. Perfect film, I think. Perfect film.
I can see that.
Built out the story well, and it's just crazy to think that you just took out, like this, children's storybook, then you built it into like an hour 45-minute movie, or then like the love interest and then his backstory. Very well done. I don't know how they thought of all that stuff. I don't know, but just like it's great.
I feel like this was like 2 or 3 unemployed friends on a beach for a summer who they were just like, we're gonna figure this out after the summer. We're gonna find a new job, and they just fleshed out like, oh, I love the Grinch as a kid. You guys want to watch the Grinch? It's June. I want to watch the Grinch. Like, and then they like just turned into this. Like, what if we blew it up? What if there was a Martha May Whovier love interest? What if there's this rough mayor? What if the Grinch has it's a garbage dump and he like eats and enjoys those things and like does all that stuff? Like, it all makes so much sense. But you could tell that I'm just picturing like a more controlled version of the like poster board with the like red strings running everywhere. For how these ideas were put together.
Yeah,
totally.
The writers of the film just like, what if we?
Absolutely. And what if we cast Jim Carrey?
Right. Perfect casting, though. He was born to play that role. And
all the characters. There's nobody who I would swap out.
No. Everybody.
Even the small characters are played really well.
I think I agree. And Taylor Momsen as Cindy Lou Who, very talented actress. And she was only like 6 at that time, I think.
Very good.
Very talented. And it was actually cool, too, is like how they say in the movie, like, you haven't even grown into your nose yet. That was because the prosthetics didn't work for her at that time. Yeah. She was so small. So it was unique that they did that, the sets they built and everything, and then like the makeup, and like, Jim Carrey went through a lot for us, but I do appreciate what he went through. And like he had to undergo torture training and all this stuff, and like how hot the suit was because it was made of yak fur, and it was initially like I think like a 6-hour process, then it got down to like 3 hours maybe or 2.5. But just
you film for 2 hours and you got to get out of it again.
Yeah, and then under the lights and stuff, I don't know how that went, and then his contacts hurt his eyes, and just like he has said he would like to do another one if there was a way to do it with motion capture or something. But I'm just curious, like where they would go with the story. I guess there is like a follow-up book which is called How the Grinch Lost Christmas.
Yeah,
but I thought like kind of a lot of it's a similar story.
I think so.
But I also feel like if you followed like maybe like sort of a revenge plot with the mayor or something, could be fun.
There's some different angles you could hit here for sure.
But just such a lovable.
Or have the Grinch, that same storyline, just dive into different parts of the Seussiverse, if you will.
Yeah, that would be
a lot of ways you could do that.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. So I guess over to my number two then.
Yes, you.
I put Santa Claus the movie
So good.
from 1985,
Yep.
which was mentioned earlier. Another one of our DVDs up
Mhm.
there. People don't talk about this one enough. Really, a lot of people do not like this movie very much. And I understand why, because like
I don't.
it is like, well, I understand to a point is that it's kind of a mixed bag because like you have the origin story of Santa, but then it kind of becomes like a real world like 80s story, and then you have like
Yeah.
the girl who has like the aunt who's kind of a snob, who's like related to like the BZ toy guy who is not a good person.
Yep.
And then Patch goes off on his own. So it's like you kind of have three different stories rolled in one. So it's like I've never thought that it was bad, and I never really thought about it in that way. It's just like what is weird though is that like Santa Claus does kind of take a backseat in his own story, and I don't really
Yeah.
like that as much. And then also too, it's like his name is David Huddleston, who played that Santa.
Yep.
Very good Santa. Nobody talks about him enough, I
Mhm.
think. Tim Allen, solid Santa. Grew up with him in my childhood, obviously too.
Yeah.
But I've always loved Santa Claus in the movie because like they built all these sets like practically and the wooden look and old school
Yeah.
and just like the animatronic reindeer and all these things. It has its own special touch. And I guess their thought with that was like how Superman had his own movie and origins and stuff. I think it was the
Yeah.
same people that
I can
did
see
Santa
that.
Claus the movie because that was kind of their thought. What if we did this for Santa? So I think it's a mixed bag, but a good story, has a lot of heart. It's one I rewatch every Christmas. I have not this year yet, but I'm sure I will.
Okay.
I've always loved it. I remember it being on like AMC a lot. I don't think 25
Mhm.
Days of Christmas as much, but AMC does their own kind of a Christmas movie marathon
Yeah.
thing, and that was always on that. I catch it in like kind of parts here and there, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, what is this? Now after seeing it all the way through, over the years, it's like been one as time has gone along. I love more and more because I was probably, a little bit older of a kid at that time when I really got into what
Mhm.
this was. But love it a lot. One of the best, Santas I think of all time in cinematic history, in my opinion. And that it was different too, that his beard was like gray. It wasn't, actually
Yeah.
like the white. So that kind of felt like a little more real in that aspect. And then you have Dudley Moore as Patch the Elf. And
Mhm.
he was kind of marketed as like the main star, which he kind of is
Yeah.
in like the second half of
Like
his
it's
movie.
his name is the main thing on the title. Yeah.
I know, that's the thing that's interesting is like he has top billing, but yet, it's like David Huddleston, that's Santa. So it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Then you
It's
also have
very
John
interesting.
Lithgow, who I love him a lot in very many different movies, plays
Yeah.
a good villain and stuff. He kind of said too, and his thoughts later, he's like, yeah, it kind of was an odd movie because it was kind of
Mhm.
all over the place. I'm paraphrasing. So I still always love it, besides like it kind of being all kind of slapped together randomly sometimes, just love the look of it,
Yeah.
the aesthetic. And then you have, the little girl and like the kind of, like homeless boy and stuff. And just, I don't know. Very good movie. I
Yep.
love it. And I will defend it forever.
I think it's
So,
great. Yeah, no, absolutely. I very much agree with a lot of what you said. I think that Santa Claus is my baseline Santa Claus, if that makes sense. Like, I love it when you get these other editions like the Christmas Chronicles or the Santa Claus with Tim Allen, like good takes on Santa. I'm not at all upset about them.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie is really like, this is the mannerisms I expect of Santa. This is how I expect him to act. This is kind of the size. This is even the gray beard. I think it's such a nice thing as opposed to the white because almost shows that continuation of what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like we're not at the end where I'm all white. I'm still very much doing this, and I think it's cool. I love the sets that are built. I love the old wood. I love the concept of it's two of his reindeer incorporated with other reindeer and these origin story pieces.
and it was kind
I
of like
love
meant
the
to be.
super duper looper thing that they're working in a little bit.
Yeah, I
Like,
love that.
I think there's a lot of really neat angles and Santa like making these connections with this homeless boy too, and like
Yeah.
the way that plays out. It's very good. I would really say it's criminally underrated. Totally get the jumping around pieces, but I also
Yeah.
think if you can look beyond that for other movies, you should be able to for this one as well, and it's just excellent. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I agree. Totally underrated. Totally underrated. Will always be loved by me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. But
Sure.
on to your number one.
Number 1, Charlie Brown Christmas.
Okay.
You
I
know?
kind of thought that would be your number one.
It's good. Yeah, I love it. Obviously, despite the fact that Apple has put it behind a paywall so that it's no longer visible to all Americans at any given time for free, like it should be. This is just not that I have hard feelings here.
No, not at all.
This is a Christmas staple. It is so good. You know it's Christmas time when Charlie Brown Christmas is coming up.
Yep.
You've got all these different spots and dealing with a lot of what were themes at the time that I still think are true today for this theme of like you brought it up earlier, like that commercialism that can get taught in and like this is what we're making Christmas into versus what it really is. you've got that concept like finding a sense of belonging for Charlie Brown, because he's always that guy who everybody hangs out with and talks to, but also feels like he's on the outside and is put on the outside in so many senses. And those feelings around the holidays, I think, can be very real and true too. And then just, yeah, the visuals, you get the Snoopy and Woodstock storyline, which is off on the side, but it works so well paired with, and you're like, you totally get it. And you've got these aspects of Charlie Brown just being able to figure out what's going on here. You've got the school Christmas play and stuff that they're prepping for, and the iconic bits with Schroeder on the piano, and all these bits and Linus in his blanket, like so much excellence. And the whole thing is just incredibly well done, just a classic. It's just truly top-notch stuff. And I also just love that it plays on a couple of these themes of like finding our way at Christmas time, and also just this concept of like, they do the whole monologue from Luke 2 and like that whole reading. And I think it's very important to like go back to like what Christmas is really truly about. And like Linus saying that, I think, is a really cool part in the line, because like there are so many of these things that we get distracted by, as opposed to being like, no, actually there's a reason, and it's Jesus is the reason we started doing this whole thing and have all these other things going on. So I think they really take it back to its roots well there. And then even just that concept, they come together at the end, and like, it's not about how great the Christmas tree was, it's what we do with it and how we decorate it and how we gather around it as a community. And like, I just thought that's just such a good come together. Like, that's probably my favorite set of Christmas credits, is them singing Hark the Herald Angels while those credits are rolling, like at the end of Charlie Brown's great.
Yeah,
So I could go on.
I think, very well said. I've always loved that special. I guess I just didn't include it because I guess I wasn't thinking of like the specials like that. We did not rule out these for the list.
We did not create a lot of definitions.
We didn't. But I think that's what made this fun, though, is that like we didn't have an exact like, be like only live action or like only feature length films, to where it's like, I still consider like, the specials, like you talked about many of them, of like, for Peanut Charlie Brown Christmas, or like the Rankin Bass ones, where it's like those were on the table too, because they are still Christmas movies. It's not like, it doesn't matter if it's a little shorter, if it's more of a special, it should be included there too. Charlie Brown Christmas has a lot of heart to it, and I believe that was like the first kind of special they did of like bringing the comic strip to life.
You're correct.
Yeah, I don't know, just a good story, and like, a lot of heart and meaning to it. And I thought it was very cool with the, reading from Luke. And it was just something that was like, you would not have expect to see, but I think it was.
But then you have Linus go, lights, please, and then just like goes for it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Bro just went off. But I like that though, that they did something different with that, and it was meaningful. Really cool. And I also thought that was great too, is that like, how so many of the themes of the special are like, it's over commercialized, but it's like, that is like, to the heart of it, of like, Jesus is the reason for the, for the season. And then also too, of like coming together and stuff. The other thing I will say too is like, everybody talks crap about Charlie Brown getting kind of like not the best tree and stuff. But I think there was something, of seeing the beauty in like the kind of broken things, or in like the light in the dark, to where he's like, no, it looks good to me. And I like that aspect with a lot of things, to be like, I like it because I like it. There's a beauty in different aspects in life that we can look at. I like that aspect, to where he's kind of like, I feel like he relates to the tree because he's, left alone and put down. Maybe he's not, shiny like all these other ones are and stuff, but it's like, it's still special.
He's a bald 10-year-old. That's a tough lot.
That's a lot, poor guy. But, yeah.
No, absolutely. I think it's great. I love rewatching it every single time. I'm never disappointed. So
solid pick for your number one.
The ice skating scene at the beginning.
Yes.
Great way to merge in.
Yeah. Actually, initially too, I think I've said this before as a little like side note. I think like in the very first like showing of it, it was sponsored by because like
because he like runs off and into the sign and like knocks down Coca-Cola.
Because like when the snow comes down, exactly. That's what I was gonna say, was very
good.
I kind of had a feeling that would be your number one, but I wasn't sure.
It was gonna be one or two. I was pretty sad. So
I think it's a good pick.
And you number one.
I guess before I get to my number one, for the record, we did not tell each other our list, so it was it's kind of cool. So you see our genuine reactions. We like said like a couple things here or there.
We had feelings.
We had feelings, But so you're getting our reactions in real time. Well, obviously you'll watch this later, but as we record this, we did not know our lists.
No idea.
But my number one would be Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I would have put a lot of money on that. I would have put a lot of money.
Shocker there. But not really.
No, it's a good film.
But just a solid film. I don't really want to elaborate too much more because I kind of went off a little bit earlier when you talked about it for your placement. But I love watching that every year. The only thing I will say, my pet peeve, was that there are some extra scenes for when it's played on TV, and those kind of flesh out the story a bit better.
Yeah.
And that was just to like kind of beef up the runtime for like with commercials and stuff for TV, because otherwise an hour and 45-minute film makes it a little bit awkward for commercials.
Yeah.
So with those added scenes, it probably makes it more like 2 hourly. But because people don't talk about that enough. But I did see a video
Like
on
the
this the other
furnace
day.
scene.
Yes, when he's trying on the different outfits and stuff, it's a little bit more extended. So like he tries on the furnace, he's like, this don't fit like it used to, and that's like a thing like
And there's
I
still
say
a fire
lot.
going inside.
Yeah, there's still fire blazing. Like, how does that work? But it's just
There's
like,
wearing
okay.
bees.
Yeah, he's like more of a summer look, with the bees thing. And then I think Stu maxes out his credit card at one point in a scene. And then there's also to where like he goes to the school, then he gets like stuck in the desk, and then like and then the teacher says like the Grinch, and then the shutters all go up and stuff.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. I think there was like another scene with Martha May, I think
so.
and then a Betty putting up her lights. I liked that.
And like the sales guy, like 99% off. Like, there was a couple more times he popped up.
Yeah. I'm blanking on what else there is, but they really should have like an extended cut released. I'm surprised they didn't do that for like this year being the 25th anniversary of that movie coming out. I did think it was cool, like the McDonald's collab. I tried the shaker fries and stuff, pretty good, but and then the Walmart commercials are interesting leaning into that,
Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah. But I think I will always love this movie. I don't know what will ever like knock this off of the top spot for me. It will probably always be number one. I'd be curious if they ever would, make a sequel somehow. Hopefully it wouldn't be as much, torture for Jim if they could figure it out to be like
let's work on that.
Motion capture or something. And I think too, with the way technology is going, they could do something about that, because he said he would do it, but I do understand too, is like that makeup was so much and stuff, but I appreciate what he went through for us, because it really shows through, and like he escapes into that character so much. And there were a lot of times too to where it's like I kind of forgot that was Jim Carrey, because I just always I felt like the Grinch was a real person. He really made that come to life, probably
Very
more
much
than
so.
any other person playing a character ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, he embodied the Grinch.
He really did.
Yeah.
And actually kind of like scared me a little bit, like just because some of that stuff would be like Jim Carrey, because that was before like I kind of knew who he was. And or like even like the mailroom scene to when he like jumps down from the corner. Yeah. The Grinch, and I just feel like they should, utilize those kind of jump scenes a little bit more in like horror movies, because they don't have that enough to where people are jumping off a ceiling, I love
Underrated.
that stuff. It is. But anyway, that is our rankings. But let us know in the comments what you think of our lists and what would be in your top 12. And then I guess my last thing, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, my brother Randy here, very special guest today, is the host of Chump Change Fantasy Football Podcast, which is also available here on Spotify. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, super brief. Chump Change Fantasy Football Podcast. I came up with this with the thought of, one, I enjoy fantasy football, so it's something I could do a podcast on and would enjoy. But so much more than that is, I love the concept of the way that fantasy football, similar to what you talk about on this podcast, is a thing that people can really gather around and come together with and enjoy as a hobby together. It's more approachable than people sometimes make it. People don't always describe it that way. And I think it's quite doable. So I love making a fantasy football podcast for people who enjoy fantasy football, but also for new people. Like I have a 101 series that kind of explains some of the terms and the basics and like how it works for those who don't know, or who just want to take an interest in a hobby that one of their loved ones or friends is interested in. So they can actually talk a little bit more intelligently. And then kind of do like a weekly show where I kind of go through some of those rankings. We celebrate the high scores of the past week and all sorts of things like that. We'll also do some fun things like talk Thanksgiving food. And I like doing rankings coming into the season as well for things kind of like this, except we just swap in fantasy football players for Christmas movies. So a lot of crossover value, really enjoy doing it. And it's kind of been fun starting up these last few months. And yeah, hopefully you come on over and check it out. And I'm just appreciative to have been on your show today.
Yeah, thank you. My very first guest on here.
Wow, I'm honored.
So, number one. Yeah, but yeah, thanks for doing this with me. And we had, kind of talked about this around Thanksgiving and stuff. So I was glad that we found a time that worked for both of us to do it in person.
Great.
And hopefully I'm looking forward to having more guests on and having different conversations. I talk about, movies like we did today, music, concerts, it's kind of an overall, like kind of entertainment and pop culture, and so it's a little bit of a broad brush that I'm painting with here, but it also opens up many different conversations that can be had. And I'm sure, that I will have you on again for just to, yap about a lot of different topics. So thanks for doing this. And hope you guys like the episode.